Yeah, sorry, Eric, try one more time. I saw your request and then it disappeared. Try requesting to share video audio. Hi everyone, thanks for joining. This is orchestration use case, deploying an open source Pastebin. Yeah, there we go. All right, we'll get started in just a couple minutes.
Yeah, I had to refresh my browser and then it let me in.
Good deal. Do you have slides you're sharing, Eric?
Yes, I do. And there, I got a repo like that they can. It's all in there. All the SLS files and the slides are all there, so you don't have to like specifically, find a way to share them. They'll be able to get it. It's a nice short URL.
Okay. Just wanted to know if you wanted to share your screen already so that we can.
Oh, sure.
Make sure that's working.
Actually, let me find them first before I start sharing it. I guess I can always just. All right. Yes, we've done that. Okay. Nope, that's not it.
Thanks everyone for joining us. Orchestration use case, deploying an open source Pastebin with Erik Johnson. Let's turn just a second.
Okay.
Good deal. All right. So I will introduce Erik. So Erik has been contributing to Assault since early 2012 and was employed as a core engineer within SaltStack between 2013 and 2019. He currently designs config automation for Lumen Technologies in their CDN organization. Awesome. All right, Erik, take it away.
Okay, so this is going to be like mostly demo, but also just a way to show you ways that you could tie different components in to ship or to deploy a single thing, right? In this case, we're going to be using Docker images, Docker volumes, and Docker containers, as well as orchestration. And we're also going to be requesting a Let's Encrypt SSL certificate, also to secure the application. So for this demo, we're going to be deploying a Pastebin. The project name it's French for file, it's fiche. If you've ever seen or heard of termbin.com, it's basically what's running there. The nice thing about that is that all you need is netcat to submit text to it. You just basically cat a file and pipe it to netcat, and then you'll get back a URL that you can go to view your pasted content. So we'll be doing this deployment via Docker microservices. So we're going to have one container that runs fiche itself, one that runs a minimal Nginx that will provide web access to those to the pasted content, so to provide the URL, the web access to view your pastes, and we'll also be using 2 Docker volumes, one to store the pastes from the application, and then one to one to house the SSL certificate. And the reason for that second one is because we'll be doing this in 2 stages. The first stage makes the request to get the SSL certificate, and it has to have a place to put it. So we put it in Docker volume, and then that allows the web the Nginx container to use that SSL, reuse that SSL certificate for itself. And as I mentioned before, we're going to be making a request to Let's Encrypt to get that SSL certificate, and so we'll be first making the request, and then in a separate SLS target, we will be deploying the 2 containers that make up the application, and then we'll be able to use orchestration to sort of do everything in a single command. So the SLS files, which we'll look at in a bit, they don't describe like everything that you need to do to get this. Like that you actually have to have a machine that you can get to the internet, that you can reach via the internet, right? People have to be able to paste send the content to. And you also in order to satisfy the requirements to request an SSL certificate via Let's Encrypt, you must have an A record, and that points at that IP address. So for our demo, I've already created a VPS which has salt on it. I moved, since I was going to have it up for a while, I just moved SSH to a different port. That's that probably didn't need to be done, but I just don't like having something with port 22 listening on the web. And then I just created I set up the software-based firewall on the VPS to permit just those 3 ports: my SSH port, and then the HTTPS port, and then port 9999, which is what the application is going to listen on. So for Let's Encrypt, for those of you who don't know what Let's Encrypt is, it's a free automated certificate authority. You basically interact with it through an API, and you have to prove that you own the domain by typically by having a file at a specific path relative to the domain that you're trying to secure. And so we'll be doing this with a Docker container and using this a script called Acme Tiny, which is a Python script that does all the API work for you. And rather than using, I don't know how many of you have used Docker states in Salt, but we have a Docker container.running, which is meant for persistent, containers that run daemons. But Docker container.run is a different state. It's basically kind of like somewhat equivalent to just doing a Docker run, and it's more well suited to things that are designed to run and then exit, which is what we're going to do here. We're going to run a shell script which invokes the Acme Tiny Let's Encrypt client, which is going to request our SSL certificate, and then, as I mentioned before, we have that SSL Docker volume, which we're going to mount into the destination where we tell Acme Tiny we want to put the certificate, allowing us to then reuse that for Nginx. So I'm going to X out of here real quick, and so let's take a look at. So we have a this we have you notice I've set this build route here. This is going to be this is the way that I've chosen to do because I want to do Jinja templating for my Docker build files, my Docker file, and pieces of the script that that requests the certificate are also templated. So I've what I've done is within the basically the build route, which is relative to the minion cacher. I've selected that we want to put everything in this this directory path relative to that, and so I'm file.recursing all the files in this files subdirectory, which we'll take a look at in a moment, and from there we will build a Docker image, and then run using docker container.run, obviously, like I mentioned, to run and then exit. We're going to run the script and exposing port 80, so that because this container will set up its own Nginx to host the file that Let's Encrypt will be looking for, right? And here we've assigned our SSL volumes. These are all, if you notice, these are all done by a Jinja. I did a very rudimentary Jinja map with defaults. Take a look at that real quick. And I actually haven't overridden any of these defaults in Pillar, but you can. If you use the exact same structure in Pillar, you can override any of these. So you'll notice here, so there's Let's Encrypt. We've just decided on the container name, the image, and the tag. Same for the other ones we're going to use. There's additionally some extra things here for the Acme script. Tells it where to clone it, and yeah, a few other things. If we go back here, we look at the files we're going to manage here. There's a small Docker file. It's just it does the clone of the Acme Tiny project to make sure that the script is there, and then right here we are making the directory path that we need that we're going to have present for the Let's Encrypt challenge to be fulfilled. And then this is just going to run and exit this genssl.sh. We don't need to go. We don't need to look that. We don't need to go through everything here. We just set a few things via templating that'll be replaced from our stuff derived via the Jinja map and defaults, and then we'll run our Acme Tiny script, which will perform the request and download the certificate. So that's what we're doing for Let's Encrypt. And so so in our second stage of our orchestration, we're going to be setting up the application container and the web container. The application container, we'll look at the Docker file for both of these in a moment. The application container will it installs like the packages necessary to build, because this is I think it's believed written in C. So it downloads all that, clones the project, builds it, and then sets for the command. It sets to run that in the foreground. The fiche application, And for the web, we just have Nginx. We just install Nginx with a very minimal SSL configuration, pointing it at the path that we are going to be providing by our SSL Docker volume that is going to house our SSL certificate. And let me go back here. We'll take a look at those before we take a look at the orchestration. So the application, this literally doesn't have anything else besides the Docker file. But if you notice, I think I mentioned this before, but we are doing a file.recurse, putting this into a location so that we could template all this first before we build. So we've got these paths here are also coming from our Ginger map, and then it's going to run the Fiche application when you run the container. And so we're in our includes here. The Rex that's going to install our Python, it's going to install pip. It's going to install the Docker interface to, or sorry, the Docker Pi. It's going to install, and yeah, so it's going to actually, yeah. So these are also coming from the Ginger map, but so these packages include Docker and pip. It's going to install install the Docker module via pip, and it's going to ensure that Docker is running. So that's included in everything that manages Docker here. And we also have this thing here that this one include that just makes sure that our pastes volume is present, right? So we're file.recursing the files directory, which we looked earlier, just has a Docker file in this case. But we're templating that before we build. This state here, our Docker image.present is going to build that image. And then our Docker container running is going to leverage the image we just built, run the application, expose port 9999, and it's going to mount that pastes Docker volume that we got from up here. It's going to mount that here, and it's going to mount it to the web root, which our web container is going to then be able to serve up. And with the web, it's also very similar. Very in this case, we have the nginx.conf. We're literally just installing Nginx, copying the config, and running Nginx in the foreground. It's very it's not very complicated at all. We're templating in our fully qualified domain name. That's the domain name that we have our A record for that we are going to be using as our common name for our certificate, and then it tells it where to look for the certificate and key. And then then this web root is the path where the pasted content has been placed. So looking at orchestration, we'll get. I'll bring this up. We can go back to the slide. It's really just a very simple orchestration. It's only doing 2 salt functions. So this is not really a complicated orchestration case. There are far more. It's far more powerful than this. But I like to keep my my live demos as uncomplicated as possible. In the first one, we're just going to run our Let's Encrypt. And then we're going to run our this Fiche SLS target, which if you go back to here, we'll note is just pulling in both the app and the web. This is a technique I like to use. Having an init.sls just include various things, if not a wildcard, like a star, underneath it. It just allows allows you to call subsets of your SLS files, and it allows you to, while still maintaining like a lets you also organize things very, very nicely. So I was able to keep my application stuff and the web stuff, the Let's Encrypt stuff, all in their own separate directories, and then you can refer to everything in there, because this right here will just be the init.sls for the app. This will be the init.sls for the web, but you can run it all just by calling the base fiche target, right? So. So yeah, like I said, very simple orchestration case, and I do recommend you check out the Orchestrate runner docs. That they have, you can do things like salt runners. You can run states instead of just functions. And there's a lot more awesome things that you can do that I'm choosing not to do here in the effort of not having my demo blow up in my face. So actually that was my final slide. I can go through and actually do the demo now. I'm just going to log in twice. So this is the same project we were looking at on the GitHub page. For those of you who it'll be in the final slide. It's just my username / saltconf21. So that has, and it also has the slides here as well. So that's how you can find that if you need to. What we're going to do is run. There we go. So this is how we're going to do our orchestration. Notice this because we're in the fiche subdirectory of serve salt, and orchestrate.sls contains the data from this last slide that we were on here. The orchestration instructions, right? So to run that, this is actually going to take just a few minutes. It doesn't take a long time, just about maybe 3 or 4 minutes. If we want to take up some of the time between then and now, if we have any Q&A, we can do that now if you like.
Awesome. Yeah, there's a few not questions, but some things I might look over in the chat.
Actually, if we do a little, we can actually see what's some of the stuff it's trying to do right now. Sometimes you get a little glimpse if it's trying to install stuff. Yeah. So yeah, it's doing some of the Docker stuff right now. This is it within the Docker container. It's building up installing Nginx into those containers. So you can see some of the stuff it's doing right now. Yeah, so first thing it's going to be doing is it's going to be building out that. Actually, I guess the first thing it's going to be doing is it's going to be installing those prerequisites. It will be installing the Docker Pi as well as pip, and getting Docker up and running. It's going to be creating that volume for the SSL. The SSL certificate, and in addition, now it's going to be building out that image to make the Let's Encrypt request. Once it finishes that, it's going to move on to the second stage, and in that stage, it's going to stand up both those other two containers, and and then we'll have a finished application. I think it took about 3 to 4 minutes to run, so I am just trying to stall for time.
Wayne has an idea in the chat.
I am screen sharing. If I go back to the chat, we're gonna get the infinitely recursing.
Oh, okay.
It's done.
Oh, there you go.
But we can go ahead. What was the idea?
I think it was just suggesting doing a tail on within the Docker.
Yes, the Docker logs. Yeah. So we'll go back to the. So here's our first stage here. In orchestration, these stages are sort of terminated by these, this dash line here. You'll see here's our get SSL cert. If we look back at here, that's this stage here, right, where we're running the Let's Encrypt stuff. And you'll notice we installed Docker, as well as pip from the prerequisites. We also I don't know what this was. Okay. I guess maybe I didn't delete that before when I was cleaning up earlier. So yeah, it should have installed it, but I think I left it there when I was cleaning this up from a prior run. Otherwise you would have seen the installation. So we've created our SSL volume. These are all managed by our requisites. So this needed to be done before we could actually launch the container, obviously. And we did a file recurse. That's something else I didn't clean up from before, or else it would have showed new files being created. But you'll see, we put everything into this place into this directory in the cacher, and then for the Docker image state, we're using this directory as like a build, your Docker build directory, so we have our image being built, and we have our script being run, and certificate signed. Everything's good. Docker service is already running. So now we're on to the second stage, and this also, because anything that uses Docker pulls in those prerequisites, you'll notice that all these things say they're already done. Those were done in the first stage, right? So we didn't need to install Docker or start the service or install Docker Pi. All that stuff was definitely already done by then. We created our volume for the pastes to be stored at. We made our image. We have our application container running. Same thing for the web container. That's really all there is to it. Now we actually have a live Pastebin. If you have Netcat and you want to send things at it, I'm going to destroy this when we're done here. So it'll be short-lived, but I can just go into here. I'm going to it would help if I use Netcat. And we have our URL returned. One interesting thing about this, it comes into play when you're using something like curl, which doesn't automatically unless you give it a CLI option. If I were just to curl the link as given, you'll notice it's 301. For some reason, it decides the application will 30. It basically 301s everything to. Actually, it's probably in my Nginx configuration. I probably boned that up. I've noticed that if you want to get it without having to use -L to follow 301s, you have to actually add a trailing slash. So yeah, that's probably my fault. But we can curl that. We get our pasted text. figured this would be timely. So yeah, you can. I'm doing turned in. We have our comes up in a web browser as well. Obviously, it's following the redirect, noticing it did put a trailing slash there. So, and that's really all there is to that application, and all there is to my demo. So, I'm going to go back to the slides real quickly, and so the SLS files for this demo I already gave you the link. It's pretty easy to remember if you want to get to there. Obviously, you'd have to make some changes if you want to run this yourself. But this really wasn't designed. This demo really wasn't designed to be as like something that people would in general want to use. It's more an example of we have a use case and we're going to break it up into these individual pieces, and how do we put them together and orchestrate it. So yeah, I hope that gave you some ideas that you could take and use in your own infrastructure. So, and if we have any, since I'm out of content here, we can do some Q&A, or I can give you back the rest of the hour.
So if you want to drop your screen share, you can look at the
Yep.
you can look at the chat and just some comments that have been happening throughout. No specific questions, I think, but you can maybe something to react to in there. And I appreciate the Carl Sagan as a Jedi image. I've never seen that before.
Yeah, most people don't get that it's Carl Sagan. They're like, "Oh, is that you?" I'm like, "No, definitely not. That person has hair."
So you bring up the chat.
Mm-hmm. I was looking at the Q&A. Okay. Right, let's take a look at what Wayne pasted here. Hopefully it's okay. Cool. I was hoping it wasn't anything dirty. Okay. Oh, sorry, obviously could not see the bigger font, please, request there when I was screen sharing. So Peter, I think the reason it requires the directory path, it's just the way that the like we can look at this at the structure. I'd have to start the screen share again, which I can do. And let's get off that so we're not okay. So if I do a forget where I put it. Okay. Wow, that's bad. I will. So look at one of these. That's how it saves each paste, is just in a file called index.txt. Right. So that's it doesn't save it as an individual file. I'm not sure why. I think there's definitely a reason, because there's other things you can do with this, like you can add on like syntax highlighting and stuff like that. And maybe there's maybe it adds additional context files underneath there, so for each paste. So
in a similar vein, Robbie asks, is the Fiche app creating the dynamic folder names in the URL, or is that Nginx?
Well, yeah, it's placing everything into individual directories, right? Instead of saving them as files, it's creating a file for them, but it's placing each of those pastes into a subdirectory. So that's why the directory.
But the name itself of the folder is just part of Fiche, I take it.
Oh yeah, you mean those randomized 4 characters? Yeah, that's being generated randomly. And I believe there are some other like flags you can pass when running the application that allow you to use more or fewer letters. Yeah. If you're going to actually deploy something like this, you're actually like if you want to set up aging, that's up to you. Like there's no audit. It doesn't like it's not sophisticated enough to like say, okay, this has been here for 6 months, time to get rid of it. You'd have to like do something via cron or something, right? To go in there and remove stuff remove things that are older than a certain amount, right?
Wayne has some ASCII art in his.
Yeah. Nice. Is there anything that any like point any parts of that? I know we did go over all the individual SLS files. Were there any parts of that people want to take a second look at that were that because I don't know if I went over things too fast, Yeah, actually, Peter, the script actually has a -r flag. The shell script that calls Acme Tiny does have a flag for renewal. So, but again, like I said, like I was trying to go for as few moving parts as possible. It's another reason I didn't use Salt Cloud for this. Wanted to make sure I had the a VM ready that was already set up the way I wanted to, because the more things you add, the more things can fail. So I had relatively very few things. It said Docker and and I guess I would rely on GitHub pretty heavily. If GitHub had an outage, I would have been pretty screwed. But yeah. So once again, did anybody want to take a look at any of the SLS files? Did anybody have any more questions about that? Oh, from Wayne, what was your favorite part of setting this stuff up? Well, I guess the fun part was when it was done, like, because before that, I'd never actually gotten it running. This is the first time I ever tried to run it was in Docker. Is probably a bad idea. But I had to figure out, the right it seems like 90% of it was the right path. So, and then figuring out, I guess. So we did have a slide. I don't know. Maybe it wasn't in the copy that I was going off of. I don't know. Did have a slide where I had a diagram, which did not show up here. This must be an older copy, but this. Yeah, there we go. Go ahead and one more time. Is the screen share running now? Yeah.
Yes.
All right. Yeah. So, yeah, I was wondering why this didn't show up, and I was using an older version of the slides. This sort of like diagrams a little bit makes it a little bit easier to visualize how all that stuff works. You have your Let's Encrypt container, which writes to this volume. It accepts connections through port 80. And this is our second stage of the orchestration, in which we set up our web and application containers. This web needs the SSL from there to provide the HTTPS. Oh, and it crashed. We're going to try that again. Open read only. Okay. So the web container needs the SSL certificate, and then it also reads the pastes that are dumped in there by the application container. So that's a diagram that I tried to cook up this morning to hopefully explain like this. And this isn't the only way, obviously, to deploy this application. I just did it this way so that I could do stuff with Docker and add more stuff into the SLS files, or else it would have been probably a lot more boring.
A couple new questions in the chat.
The Docker containers themselves, David. So the question from David that was the Docker with or without systemd. In this case, they were not running systemd. They were running applications in the foreground or scripts in the foreground. You can do Docker with systemd. You just need to use systemd as your command, and you need to bind mount your C groups, I think, and /temp or /run or something like that, right? There's a few things you have to do. And another thing you need to do is change the stop signal, because if you send a sig term to systemd, it just restarts it. So you will not be able to Docker stop a container in a timely manner unless you change that. But in this case, I'm running Nginx, or I'm running the Fish application, or the script for the Let's Encrypt. Those are all the command, like running those commands in the foreground as the container's PID. And the question from Robbie, the main driver for using Docker was just a challenge, right? I knew I wanted to show a full stack of how you would take a templated Docker file, turn it into an image, and then run that image using a volume. It's just, there's plenty of other ways you could run everything on a single machine without involving Docker at all. This is just, slightly more of a challenge, and allowed me to introduce more things into the demo. I do not think I'll be doing it with Kubernetes. I probably could do it with nspawn. I don't know. I haven't used nspawn since about 2017, so I'm very rusty. Well, did we have any other questions, or did you guys want to get back a little bit of your time today?
Oh, something in the Q&A. I didn't see that.
Ah, I did not either. Question from Wayne: when you were setting this up, were there any surprising behavior in Salt or any of the tools you were using? Not really. I think because I'd used all the Docker stuff before, right? That and actually I actually wrote most of the Docker support, so I was pretty familiar with the code and like how the states were supposed to work. The I think I mean, I'd never before this. I'd never used Let's Encrypt, right? So I think it was surprising how easy it was, maybe to get Let's Encrypt to work, assuming that you meet all the requirements, like having a domain and being able to serve up a file at a relative path. That was a lot easier than I thought it would be. I have not set up any sort of cases to renew the script or the certificate, but yeah, I did not actually do this while screen sharing. But if you look at any of the paste there, you can actually see like the lock icon shows that it was secured by Let's Encrypt. So I just don't think I need to go back into screen share to show that again. So yeah, that Wayne says that using, I guess, something called Caddy, I guess that's a tool for Let's Encrypt, or another script that implements the API. Yeah, this I actually wrote a lot of the code for this a couple of years ago. Okay, like it's different. It's a different web server, and Caddy is not a Let's Encrypt API client or whatever. Yeah, I just used what I knew. Maybe setting something up like that it would have been easier than making a Docker image to run Nginx, but.
Well, almost at time if you want to call it there.
Yeah, we can. Yeah, I think we've answered a lot of questions. I don't know if we have any new ones, but yeah, I hope this gives you some ideas of changes you can make or enhancements you can make to your existing orchestration, or gives you some ideas of what to do to start using orchestration. One thing I didn't do, though, in my orchestration SLS, you can actually use requisites in there, just like you do with states. So you can actually make certain orchestration stages depend on others, and right, so they won't even execute if a prior one fails. You can make orchestration stages that are on changes or on fail. There's really a lot of additional things you can do. So that's why I recommend checking out the documentation.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing your knowledge today, and thanks everyone for participating, and glad the demo went so smoothly.
See you later.
All right. Take care. All right.